North Valley Kids Ministry. It is me once again, Miss Abigail, with your Bible story for the week. I hope you are all doing well. Hopefully we can see each other in person soon, but this is what you got, and so we're going to make the most of it, right? Now, with making the most of it, that means you're going to have to print out the activity sheet. Now, the activity sheet for this week, so just so you know, there's different activity sheets for different age groups, and I went through them and picked this one out because it's my favorite, because the activity is where you look at the picture and find the 7 things that are different from this picture to that picture. I don't know why I love doing those, but I do. I like comparing and contrasting them and circling what's different. So this one's lots of fun. Of course, we have our coloring sheet on the back that you can always color as you are listening to the Bible story or after or before, just whatever you please. Now this is our 4th session in Unit 12, and so this is our 4th time doing this big picture question, so let's see if you can answer it. What does God know? What does God know? It says God knows everything about the past, present, and future. God knows everything about the past, present, and future. And when we say everything, it's everything. He knows how many ants are in the ground. He knows how many hairs are on your head. He knows everything, which is really, really, really cool. Just like the big picture question, this is our 4th time doing this. Now, our key passage is from James 1:5, and it reads, "If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives generously to all without reproach, and it will be given to him." James 1:5. Again, I'm going to keep saying it. I want you to look up in your Bible what it reads. This is an ESV version. So look up any versions that you have, King James, NIV, all that fun stuff, and see what words are different, what words are the same, and stuff like that. Once again, that is James 1:5. Now, with all of that being said, we are ready for our story. Now, if you remember, this whole unit has been about King Solomon. So this one is called The Kingdom Divided, and it is from 1 Kings 11 through 12. 1 Kings 11 through 12, and it starts with how King Solomon loved God, but he did not love God with his whole heart. So let's see what they mean by that. So Solomon had hundreds of wives. Yeah, I'm going to let that sink in for a minute. Hundreds of wives. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. Just hundreds of wives. And many of them were from other nations. So Solomon's wives turned him away from God, and he began to worship the false gods that his wives worshipped. God was obviously angry, and God said to Solomon, "Since you have done this, I will take your kingdom away from you. You will be king the rest of your life, but when your son becomes king, he will lose everything except for one tribe." Now, we have seen from the past that when God makes bold statements like this, when he makes promises, they always, always come true. So we can probably go ahead and assume that what God is saying is going to come true. So when Solomon died, his son Rehoboam became king. The people told Rehoboam, "Your father Solomon made us work too hard. We will gladly serve you if you will make our work easier." Okay, so automatically we see the people seeing that they have a new king and begging them not to make them work, to not make the nation as good as it is, and to stop doing God's work that they have been doing. And that's just not how it's supposed to work. That's not how God had planned this. So Rehoboam thought about it, and he asked his father's friends for advice, because he didn't know the answer. He didn't know whether to keep up his father's legacy or to make them not do a lot of work. And the friends said, "Be kind to the workers, and they will work for you forever," they said. But Rehoboam ignored that advice. He asked his own friends what he should do. And Rehoboam listened to his friends and told the workers, this is what the friends told Rehoboam to say, "My father didn't make you work hard enough. I will make you work even harder." Okay, so he should know better than to do that, right? Because if you tell somebody to work harder than they already are, and they're already working really hard, they're going to resent you for it. They're not going to want to do it. So the people didn't want to serve a king like Rehoboam. So they made Jeroboam king. Now Jeroboam had been one of Solomon's officials. Now he was king of the northern kingdom of Israel. Only one tribe remained under Rehoboam's rule, and that was the southern king of Judah. Now, I'm going to go back to what I said earlier about when God told Solomon that you'll be king for the rest of your life, but when your son takes over, he will only have one tribe left. And we see that that just happened. It says Rehoboam's rule that he only had one tribe, and it was the kingdom of Judah. So Rehoboam did not like being king of only one tribe. He planned to attack the northern kingdom of Israel, but God sent a prophet to stop him. The prophet had a message from God, and it said, "Do not fight them. The people of Israel are part of your family. I am the Lord, and I am in control of what is happening." So Rehoboam went home. Now Jeroboam was the king of Israel, but he wasn't a good king. When the people of Israel traveled to Jerusalem to worship God at the temple, Jeroboam worried that they would start thinking of Rehoboam as their leader. That's the other king. And he didn't want that. He wanted all the glory. He didn't want Rehoboam to be getting any of it. So going to Jerusalem is too difficult for you, he said. Here are your gods who brought you from the land of Egypt. You can worship them. He put out 2 calves, golden calves, for the people to worship instead of worshiping God, to keep the people from mistaking him as not a good king. So what Jeroboam did was a sin, obviously. God tells us not to worship false gods, and that is exactly what he made his people do. He set out these golden calves for them to worship, and when they're worshiping golden calves, they are worshiping a false god, and they're not worshiping our true God. So Jeroboam led all the people to worship the false gods instead of the true God, right? So Christ connection, like we always do, King Solomon failed to lead God's people perfectly, right? We see that. He had many wives and he sinned against God, and God made that bold statement. So God's people needed a better king. They needed a perfect king. Now, obviously, Rehoboam and Jeroboam were not perfect kings, but we are seeing the failures, right, of all these kings, and that's leading us to be given a perfect king. And I'll let you guess who the perfect king is. That's right, it's Jesus. So he's leading up this way, showing us how humans are failing along the way, and as they are not loving God with their whole heart. And we see that as Jesus comes, he does love God with his whole heart, and he is the one and the only perfect king that we see. So I hope that's our story. I hope you enjoyed it, and we are going to be moving on to our next unit soon. So I will see y'all then.